Okay, so there seems to be a number of video topics that I could raise, but this one seems to be as practical as any. I hope the audio is clear. Few different settings here. I've lost the beard, obviously had a very nice shave the other day. In fact, I'll put in a word for them because they've done a fantastic job. The SB Academy in Sunderland. They offer free gentlemen's haircuts and wet shaves, really, really professional. Um, Basically, it's student barbers who um, offer this service. Excuse me. And yeah, they get training in return. They give free haircuts to the public and free shaves. It's really the full deal, wet towel, everything. Very professional. Felt great, in fact. So I'd strongly recommend them. The SB Academy in Sunderland. Also, different location here. I've been moving around a lot recently, like really a lot. It's probably the most physical work I've done in my life, actually. Moving so much furniture, paperwork, an enormous amount of stuff. I've really burned a lot of calories in recent days, which is a good thing. But I want to talk about this is quite a personal video, and I'm going to put this up because it very much applies at this time in my life. Whether I keep it up or not, I don't know. But and it's not that I'm ashamed of anything that I'm going to say. It's just that I don't want people to think this defines me or it's overshadowing everything else because it's not. But it is quite a serious issue. That's depression. Um, I can't guarantee there'll be anything particularly original in this video. Depression is a well documented subject. And there's many videos out there about this subject. Clinical depression. I don't know what the exact statistics are, but it's quite prevalent. Something like 1 in 5 adults will go through this at some point in their life. Um, so it's quite high. If you think of a country like the UK, I think that's 1 in 5 adults as opposed to 1 in 5 people. So I'm not sure what the figures are for children if that is diagnosed or not. But we're talking there, if it's 1 in 5, maybe 10 million people. So this is a chronic health problem, and it is a health issue because it inevitably is one of the major causes of suicide. People feel that they've just no way out. And the thing about suicide, and this is directly related to the subject of depression, in most cases, people don't actually want to die. It's not this morbid thing about being in like they hate life so much that they want to die, that they get some sort of enjoyment out of the thought of dying. Sometimes a caricature of suicide can seem that way, but actually, what it really is about wanting to be in another mental environment, wanting to be out of the train of thought where things are just so gloomy and so bad that there seems to be no way out. Now, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counselor, so I'm not going to try and give any peer advice on this, but I do want to speak about my own experience and if it maybe helps people to understand this or have some sort of understanding that might be useful. Not long ago, I came close to a mental breakdown, and without going into all the details, people were aware of this. I basically made it pretty clear how I was feeling online on Facebook, and I think people responded because they know me, they know so much in that they know I'm not an attention seeker, so I'm not the sort of person to write something dramatic in order to get attention. So people took notice of this. Over 100 people. I had friends from all over the world contact me to ask if I was okay. Colombia, China, Malaysia, Iraq, Italy, Germany, across the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, literally all over the world. And I was taken back by that. I'm not sure if flattered is the right word, but I was warmed by the sense of human decency that I was getting from that. And I still do feel good about that, but I'm now in the process of sort of dealing with my depression. I'm seeing a counsellor. Um, I'm going to a mental health charity here in the UK, Mind. They do some very good work, and I've used the Samaritans on occasion. That's a free phone number in the UK for basically people who are advisors. No, actually, I retract that. They're not advisors. They're people who listen, basically listen to problems. In fact, they're like, actually not advisors. Um, but basically, I'm taking different approaches to try and deal with the issues that I've got. I don't want to go into all the details of all the problems I've got because I think it would be a little bit exhibitionist on a public video to do that. But um, let's just say I have a lot of personal pressures in life, serious personal pressures. Some of it's financial, some of it's down to loneliness. There's various things that impact this. Depression is not an exact science. People suffer depression for different reasons. But one thing I really, really want to emphasize, and this isn't always known, depression is much, much more than just feeling bad. The worst thing you can say to someone who's going through depression is just get over it, or, oh, everyone has down days. Because the thing about depression, it isn't just having a down period. Everyone maybe has a stressful day at work or they get frustrated by something. But the thing about depression is it is an entrenched mental state of serious gloom and anxiety. Very often it is coupled with anxiety. That seems to be quite a common trait with depression. Certainly in my case, it has been. In my case, it's not necessarily social anxiety, so I don't get nervous in big crowds and that sort of thing, but it's more a case of I'm at a time in my life now, I'm 31 years old, decisions I make are vital. So I get anxiety from the responsibilities of life. And really, the message I'd like to send out there, what I really want to tell people is that anxiety, or excuse me, depression is not just feeling down. It really isn't. And there is no quick cure for this. Incidentally, I'm also on medication at the moment, something called sertraline. So far has had little impact. I'm going to go back to the doctor. I have to go back anyway to sort of so she can evaluate what sort of progress it is having. My depression doesn't stop my function in terms of, I mean, I put videos out there. I continue that consistently. I form my views on things. I interact with society in that sense. Partly all this moving has brought about a bit of anxiety and stress, which is inevitable. That's moving always is. Some tensions with my parents, but that's so does most people. Get on with them as well. It's really not a major issue, but it's something. Um, to be honest, just talking this way helps me myself to reflect on things. And there, like I said, there isn't really any purpose of the city. It's simply to discuss what depression is, my experience. It's not something that can be easily gotten out of. I don't think it's eternal. And I would say that other people out there who are suffering depression, in my case, it's went up and down. There has been some years in my life that have been a lot better than others. And I can't say that for everyone. But what I would say is there has been times in my life where the situation has seemed utterly despairing. And then I didn't do anything and something good came later on. 2016 has been a particularly tough year for me. A lot of personal circumstances have changed, not for the better. But 2017 might be a great year. And I appreciate that's not the same for everyone. Some people feel that it's a consistently negative thing. I'm not going to patronize people and say it will get better because I just don't know everyone's individual circumstances. But what I would say is don't let this thing define you. Don't let depression hijack your whole existence because there is more to life. I mean, I try to keep myself busy. I try to get on with things. And what I find is people with depression, and I admit this myself, can be more sensitive than other people in certain respects. You can be more thin-skinned. You can be overthink things. So it's an interesting subject, and it is very prevalent. But I think people need to be able to talk about things. And sometimes there is another point I'd like to make. This is important. Sometimes people respond with really strong sympathy, and that's nice. It shows the benevolent side of human nature. But you can actually also give someone too much sympathy. What I mean by that is that you can almost shackle them with love to the point where they feel a little bit overwhelmed or even slightly embarrassed by it, and that can make it equally hard to talk about problems. So the sort of two extremes, you can either be totally uncaring, and that makes it hard for people to talk about problems, or be sharp, or you could be overbearing. The most I think the thing that I value most is people listening to me and saying, "Look, I'm going to listen. Just tell me what the issue is and tell me how you're feeling." So it's not overwhelming people with love and praise, although that's a nice thing. It can actually be overwhelming, and it could be that can make it equally hard to talk about problems because then the person feels slightly embarrassed, like they feel like they're a child, or so sometimes that could be, although it clearly has good intentions. What I would say respectfully to people is that approach can sometimes be overwhelming to people. The best approach you could give someone with depression is simply say that you're there for them, that you will listen to them, and not to feel embarrassed about discussing problems. And sometimes it does take professional sources because sometimes friends and family, although they would want the help, they wouldn't necessarily be able to understand because they're too close. So sometimes having a counselor or a psychologist is better because they're strangers, so there's a distance there. I personally find it easier to talk to strangers about some of my major problems than to friends and family. I'm not saying universally there's some issues to talk to them about, but anyway, I'm going to round this video up because I don't want it to be too long. But I hope people can take something away from this. My issue isn't resolved. This is an ongoing process. And, some moments I feel happier, but my life isn't particularly happy right now. I'll just put that out there. So the depression is a problem. I'm not miserable, but I'm not happy. And I know exactly the things I want. And I'm just trying to get things right. I'm just trying to. What I would say about depression, though, is you need to understand that if the depression is stemming from problems in your life that you feel that you need to resolve, none of those things can be resolved until you get to the base problem, which is depression. One of the major mistakes I made was kind of I was aware that that was an issue, but I was just constantly focusing on trying to get the other things right rather than just dealing with this. So before I wasn't seeing a counselor, I wasn't taking medication, and I'm not saying these things are helping completely, but they're a process and it's certainly better than nothing. So if you have other problems that you think is fueling the depression, whatever that might be, financial problems, relationship problems, those things are obviously important, but you cannot deal with them until you address the root problem, which is the mental health issue of depression. And you need to get professional help for that. If you're in an area where maybe that's not available, and even speaking to someone who may have some sort of background in it, or there's online resources as well, that has to be the base. I mean, for me, it's a frustrating thing because I'm a very ambitious person and I feel this depression holding me back. But I also understand that I cannot do anything until I sort this out. And it's not an overnight process, it takes time. But I feel when you can improve your mental health, reduce anxiety, reduce negative feelings, and increase serotonin levels, which is an active chemical in the human brain. It's I don't know all the science of it, but basically it improves positive thinking. Um, Believe me, it's possible. It is possible to think positively. But sometimes in the midst of depression, that can seem an impossibility. And yet, it could be just a little thing that makes you happy. Just a little thing. It doesn't have to be the big things. It could be watching a DVD. It could be burning incense. It could be anything. Those things can help to at least influence the positive thinking, and it won't be permanent, but it helps. Or even doing something you haven't done before, and it doesn't have to be a major financial thing. Just I went to the swimming pool a while back and haven't done that for a few years. I felt good about it. So it could be anything. Anyway, I'm going to round this up. I hope this helps people just insofar as empathy is concerned and helps people understand. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, by the way, if you maybe don't know much about the subject and you'd like to ask. There are no experts, but people who are going through it can definitely have some understanding of it. Um, and again, the purpose of this video is not to try and get sympathy or something like that. It's just to try and put out there what this is or what I feel this is from my own experience. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of other things I could think to say in this video, but for now I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching.